So now let's move on to neoclassical growth theory. Neoclassical growth theory. So this was the popular growth theories, kind of the older popular growth theories. And so usually these started with this aggregate production function. So if you remember when we did producer theory, or when we looked at the cost functions of firms, we had a production function. Here we have the same thing, but we're thinking about a production function in terms of the entire economy rather than just a firm. Production function. And so what GDP equals is going to be some function, that's f, is the function, and it's going to be determined by t, which is, we're going to say in a second, is technology. And within this function, the inputs are h, l, and k. So h is human capital. L is the labor force. So these are those factors that we talked about, those sources of economic growth we talked about. And K is capital, so physical capital, like machinery and things like that. And T is technology. Technology. And so you see this function has a subscript T associated. That's the idea that changes in technology are going to change the underlying production function. So essentially, where all these main results of this neoclassical growth theory are going to come from are going to be assumptions we're going to make about this aggregate production function. So let's talk about the assumptions that this neoclassical growth theory makes on this production function, and talk about how changes in these different inputs are going to impact growth over time, or GDP over time, and whether that's an increase in material living standards or not. So the key assumptions of the aggregate production function are the following. The first is that we have diminishing, when we change just one of our factors, we have diminishing marginal product. Diminishing marginal product if we change one of our inputs in isolation. So what I mean by that is, let's say our production function, instead of being a function of human capital, capital, and labor, is just a production, it's just a fact, just inputs are, the only inputs are capital and labor. It's only a function of capital and labor. Whew, got there eventually. And if we assume it's basically like we're holding one of our factors constant, so if we made this assumption about our production function, if we held capital constant at some number and just changed L, then we have diminishing marginal product. As we add more and more labor, or if the labor force increases by more and more, it's going to have a diminishing marginal product. So labor is going to have a diminishing marginal product, and as we add more and more labor, it's going to have a smaller and smaller effect on output. Our output's going to go up still goes up, but at a diminishing rate. So just holding one factor constant, just changing the other. The second one is that we have constant returns if we change all inputs by the same amount. So again, let's imagine, like this is just an example obviously, but if we have that same example with leaving out human capital, All it's saying is if we increase both the inputs by 1, our production function is going to result in output going up by 1.